Guilt is one of the most uncomfortable experiences available to human beings, and much of contemporary psychology is organized, in one way or another, around helping people feel less of it. Cognitive approaches identify guilt-producing thought patterns and challenge their accuracy. Humanistic approaches emphasize self-compassion and the importance of releasing unnecessary self-judgment. Certain therapeutic cultures treat guilt almost entirely as an obstacle to well-being, something to be processed, reduced, and ultimately left behind on the path to psychological health. Viktor Frankl had a more complex and more demanding view. He did not think guilt was simply a symptom to manage. He thought it was, in its authentic form, a signal worth taking seriously, the voice of conscience speaking about something real. Frankl's framework places conscience at the center of the specifically human dimension of existence. In his three-dimensional model of the human being, somatic, psychological, and neurotic, conscience belongs to the neurotic dimension, the layer of spirit that is most distinctly human. Conscience is not simply a set of internalized social rules, as Freud's superego suggested. For Frankl, conscience has genuine moral content. It is the organ through which human beings perceive meaning in the ethical dimension, the capacity to hear what a situation requires of them, what is right to do here and now, what failure demands of them after the fact. Authentic guilt, in Frankl's understanding, arises from a genuine moral failure. You have done something that your deepest values condemn. You have failed someone who depended on you. You have acted in a way that contradicts who you believe yourself to be and who you genuinely want to be. This kind of guilt is not comfortable, but it is appropriate. It is conscience working correctly. And the right response to it is not to suppress it, rationalize it away, or rush towards self-forgiveness before anything has actually been examined or changed. The right response, Frankl believed, involves three things. First, honest acknowledgement, taking full responsibility for what was done without minimizing or deflecting. Second, making whatever amends are genuinely possible, not as a performance for others but as a concrete expression of the remorse that the guilt represents. And third, allowing the experience to change something, not just feeling bad, but actually learning from the failure in a way that shapes future behavior. Guilt that does all three of these things is guilt that has served its purpose. It has pointed toward a truth, motivated a response, and contributed to growth. Frankl was equally clear about neurotic guilt, and this is where his view becomes more sympathetic to the concerns of contemporary psychology. Neurotic guilt is guilt that is either excessive relative to the actual moral weight of the act, or attached to situations that involve no genuine moral failure at all. The person who feels crushing guilt for small imperfections, for circumstances beyond their control, or for failing to meet the unrealistic expectations of others, this person is not being guided by conscience toward genuine moral learning. They are being tortured by an anxiety that has taken on the costume of guilt without its substance. The distinction matters practically. Genuine guilt demands a response in the world, amends, change, accountability. Neurotic guilt demands, above all, a psychological response, the recognition that what one is feeling is not a moral signal but a symptom of anxiety or perfectionism, and that treating it as a moral signal only deepens the trap. Frankl would agree, in the case of neurotic guilt, that relief is appropriate, not through dismissing the feeling, but through accurately identifying it as something other than what it appears to be. Frankl also addressed what he called the existential dimension of guilt, the guilt that arises simply from being a finite, imperfect human being who inevitably falls short of the possibilities that each moment contains. There is a sense in which every choice is also a refusal of other choices, and every life involves failures of love, attention, and courage that compound over time. This is not a neurotic guilt. It is an honest recognition of the gap between what we are and what we could have been. Frankl believed this recognition, when held without self-pity or despair, could itself be a source of meaning, an invitation to take the remaining time more seriously. The constructive use of conscience is what Frankl was pointing toward, the capacity to let guilt do its real work, to guide, to motivate, to illuminate what genuinely matters, without letting it become a residence rather than a passageway. You pass through guilt on the way to greater integrity. You do not set up camp in it. Subscribe to the Psychology of Viktor Frankl to explore more of his timeless ideas.